What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the first film that I got to check out in theaters this year, and this movie is called M3GAN. Directed by Gerard, Johnstone, and starring people like Allison, Violet McGraw, and Jenna. This film is written by James Wan and Akela Cooper and tells the story of an AI doll that becomes a little bit overly attached. So I think it's safe to say that we know exactly what Universal Studios is going to be throwing at us when it comes to Halloween Horror Nights later this year, as M3GAN, I think, is definitely going to go down as a horror icon for future years, as many other Blumhouse installments have. This film comes to us from Universal Studios and Blumhouse, and I just got home from checking out my theatrical screening of it, and this was my very first movie going to see in theaters for 2023. So yeah, just happy to have gone as a movie fan to the theaters to go see a brand new movie in 2023, first time in the year. And what can I say about this movie? Overall, I enjoyed it. As a fan of over-the-top, very self-aware comedy horror, it's right up my alley. I have talked about that on dozens of occasions here on the channel, with my favorite franchise in the horror genre being the Chucky franchise, which in and of itself is an incredibly self-aware horror comedy franchise that also centers on a doll. The base premise of this film, when we open up the movie, is we follow a young girl whose mother and father were unfortunately killed in an accident, and she now has to live with her aunt. Her aunt actually works at a toy making company and makes smart pets, something that kids will be able to spend some time with that kind of are a companion for them. And she's actually been working on the next evolution of what she's been working on, which is a model called M3GAN, which is a AI life-size little girl looking AI doll that is meant to connect with the user, connect with the child that it connects with, and over the course of time is meant to learn more and more and more based on its surroundings and the child that it's spending every day with. And so over the course of the film, this doll starts to create a bit of an over attachment to the young girl we're following here in the film. And as the movie progresses, as you can see in the trailer, she becomes a bit of a murderous, crazy doll in a very similar way to what we saw with the remake of Child's Play, which I thought was a decent film for what it is, completely detached from the original Child's Play franchise. I much prefer my dolls be possessed by Charles Lee Ray, but in that remake, you have a very similar kind of thing where Chucky in that film was very attached to the Andy in that film, and as time went on, the idea of him not being Andy's friend or anybody else being Andy's friend was something that Chucky did not like. So in a very similar fashion, we have the movie M3GAN here, where we follow an AI doll that becomes just ridiculously over attached to this young girl, and over the course of the film, her whole goal is to save this young girl from any physical and emotional harm, and she takes that to the next level, harming anything and anyone around this young girl that even will pose any sort of threat. M3GAN just wants to be this young girl's friend, and that is that. Nothing else, nothing more. And so, yeah, overall, I feel this is a fairly predictable movie going into it. If you've seen the trailers, there's nothing about this movie that I feel is really going to shock a lot of people. This is the movie that knows what it is. It's a big, over-the-top movie. It's not something that is necessarily trying to reinvent the wheel, and overall is just a silly good time. I don't think this is a movie that's going to work for everybody, but if you are a fan of very self-aware horror, specifically horror comedy, things that don't take itself too seriously and pokes fun at itself, I think there's some fun to be had here. I think this is a movie that is going to work for people that, again, just like something that's a little bit on the nose. With that said, I wasn't absolutely crazy about this film, but I enjoyed it. I found it to be a cute, fun time for a horror kind of movie in the early part of the year. I think January is pretty well known for being a pretty mild time of year when it comes to horror. This is a PG-13 horror film, so you can't really go into this movie expecting heavy gore and blood and massive scare effects. This is a movie that's far more about tone and something that's a little bit very self-aware and over the top, more so than trying to actually genuinely scare the audience. Beyond the horror element of it and the actual story itself, this is a big commentary on the idea of what a lot of people nowadays call iPad parents, where where this movie has a lot of commentary on the idea of having technology raise young children versus the parents actually raising their kids, which is a very on-the-nose message that this film has, though I do think for the most part it's a fairly effective message, and I feel like it utilizes that message in a pretty comedic way over the course of the film that most adults will be able to walk away from it kind of thinking, yeah, I think they have a point here. And beyond all the commentary and the base premise being a good fun time for people who like this kind of stuff, beyond that, I found this to be a well-shot film. The performances for the most part are pretty solid, and I feel like the practical effects used to bring M3GAN to life and to bring a lot of the other elements of this film to life when it comes to the horror elements for the most part really worked here. I really enjoyed the overall aesthetics of this film and everything that kind of made M3GAN come to life. She has a very creepy, uncanny valley kind of thing that brings her to life overall, and when you're watching her character, there's times where she is genuinely creepy, there's times where she's genuinely cute, there's times where she's funny, there's times where she's ugly, and there's times where she's wildly believable. And I think for the most part, the character of M3GAN is really pulled off here. Beyond all of those elements though, if I had to lean into some negatives, I think that, like I mentioned earlier, this is a fairly predictable movie. I don't think this is a movie people are going to go into and really kind of expect a bunch of twists and turns. And even if you are going into this movie expecting that, I would recommend maybe taming your expectations. This movie is pretty much what's marketed. It's not something that's kind of going above and beyond to be a film filled with twists and turns and something that's going to have a lot of shock value, while this movie has plenty of moments that are kind of like, oh damn, oh shit, oh fuck, that's pretty crazy. It's not really crazy. It's not over the top crazy. It's just a good time to kind of watch with some friends. My fiance and I watched it with my buddy Rob. We all had beers. We were kind of getting nice and, lightheaded, getting that nice buzz that you like from a good beer. And it was just an enjoyable watch. We had some laughs throughout, a couple of moments of, oh shit, but nothing that was really ever shocking us. I think for the most part, we all knew what we were getting out of this movie, and we were perfectly satisfied with that. So I do want to say that so you guys know what to expect from this film and maybe what not to expect from this film. I would say go in with fairly tame expectations. Watch the trailer, and the trailer will pretty much let you know what you're getting from this film. It's a fairly predictable movie, and with predictability comes some elements that maybe feel underdeveloped. And so overall, I found that a lot of this film does feel underdeveloped in terms of the characters and certain elements in terms of the story. This is a movie that is really focused mainly on this M3GAN individual and kind of seeing how she unfolds over the course of the film, and our main human characters that we're following over the course of the film, for the most part, a lot of times do feel fairly one note. This is an enjoyable movie. I had a good time with it. I recommend it for fans of horror comedy, but I do recognize that not everybody's going to love this film, even though I had a good time with it. I don't think this is a movie that's going to be on my top 10 by the time we get to the end of the year, but it's a movie I found myself having a good time with in the theaters. It's a movie I don't know that everybody should rush to theaters to see, depending on your personal sensibilities and your personal taste, but I think that if it's a movie that you catch years from now or months from now on streaming and you're wondering if you should check it out, I do think it's a movie worth checking out at least once to see if it's something that works for you. I don't know that it's going to work for everybody, like I mentioned before, but I had a good time with it as a fan of horror comedy and over-the-top self-aware films, even if I can admit that certain elements in the story department and in the character development department were maybe lacking. So a big thanks to you guys for watching. Definitely want to hear what you guys have to say down below. So hit that like button, comment your thoughts, subscribe for more videos, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye-bye.